a run of Mega Man Xtreme 2 being run by TempestMask. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Feasel, and hello, friends and fellow gamers. My name is, as mentioned, TempestMask1000, and you're about to see what is essentially a Mega Man X game that means a lot to me. This is also going to be the start of quite a bit of Mega Man content coming up as well, so I'm very happy to essentially open things up. And with that in mind, I hope you all are ready for a bit of a hidden gem on the Game Boy Color over here. This is Mega Man Xtreme 2, also known as Rockman X2 Solar Racer in Japan. So, it's a game that a lot of people might mistake for a fan title, but believe me, it's legit. And joining me is also an absolutely legit runner, and one who's also found quite a bit of stuff in the game that I didn't even know about, Road Zorn.
Hello everybody, my name is Road Zorn. I am actually the world record holder for the variant of this category that does the credits for the glitch, but that's a can of worms for some other discussion. I also am basically a glitch hunter for this game, and as Tempest said, I found a decent amount of things pretty recently, actually, that are just unbelievable. But yeah, that's me.
Indeed, and let me tell you, your most recent find is especially something, but we'll talk about that another time, because right now I gotta go through my options before we start the run. So here's the options screen, and up top, we got the select feature, which is set to scramble change. That's a character swap that will come in, and we'll be sure to explain pretty early on. We've got below that, the auto charge and rapid fire. Oh gosh, auto fire, imagine that. Rapid fire is turned on. Auto charge is not. So, with that in mind, time will begin once I select my difficulty. So I hope you all are ready for some X and 0. Well, at least I got one of them right. And we'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Alright, so welcome to Xtreme 2. This game launched in 2001 and came out before Mega Man X6 in Japan. This game also officially takes place in between X3 and X4, which is why you're currently seeing Iris on the screen alive and well. And she's actually doing something of a little internship here in the Maverick Hunter headquarters as a navigator who will be helping X and Zero in this crisis, which we are here on Lagoo's Island, the set piece where some crazy stuff is happening. In 21XX, Reploids have been suddenly shutting down, and apparently their DNA, which act as their souls, their hub of personality, is being ripped out of them. So X and Zero are currently investigating Lagoo's Island, where some what's called erasure incidents are happening, and we are currently in the intro stage, where I am currently playing as X, and believe it or not, there's a split path that changes between which character opens up the gate. So I'm doing X because his route is a bit simpler, and also for taking care of this boss, Skullhead, or as I like to call him, Mega Skeletor. So do the thing, Zorn.
Yeah!
So, this guy likes to go from left to right, but he can only go left and right so much that putting him all the way left is the best way to do it, because then I can just rail him with those rapid fire shots. If I tried to use a charge shot or Zero's saber, the screen would flash and he would have iframes, and that's no fun. So we just want to take care of him as soon as possible. And there could have been a little bit of better luck if he decided to spawn a platform that briefly crawls up the non-existent walls, which would have given me an even closer range to really let the health go down. Here we got Gareth, though, and, yeah, we're gonna just quickly talk about something called DNA Souls, which is essentially parts currency, but also acts as health and weapon refills of a certain shape. It's a diamond-like, but with a little circular white center, and they usually come out of enemies in what I call clusters. So single clusters, 4 apiece, double clusters, 8 apiece, 12, or triple clusters, sometimes 12, but usually 16. And anytime I beat a boss, that's going to be normally 200, but there's a chance that I could get 100 as well, which I hope is not the case here. Let's find out. Let's go. Alright, so there's a chance that Skullhead could have given me 100, and that would have been especially bad. And Zorn, why is that?
The reason why is because, for fighting bosses, you primarily will use Zero, because Zero actually has this weird thing with him, where you do use his saber, but there's something extra. So Zero has this weird thing where if he jump slashes, he actually deals 1 extra point of damage, and if you combine that with Saber plus 1, it deals 4 bits of damage to enemies and bosses, and if you get 100 souls, then that basically just makes you lose a bunch of time to Wire Sponge.
By the way, shout out to wall jumping in this game. You can really chain things super fast, and that's just because of the way wall jumping's motion is compared to other games. It's practically similar to some of the tech that you can do in X6, which I believe is called Saber wall climbing or something like that. The shame that you can't really do it with the actual Saber and Zero, but you know, it's in general the motion is me just repeatedly, somewhat rhythmically pressing the wall jump button as many times as I can to make it seem as seamless as possible. It's really not a hard trick to learn, and also possible in Xtreme 1. Now we're going on to Wire Sponge.
Believe me though, mashing for that does not actually work.
Well, yeah, no, it's not necessarily mashing, but it's somewhat close to. Anyway, Sponge is going to work very similarly to X2. I'm actually going to, I'm going to take a safety death here because this fight can be a little dangerous if I'm not too careful. And if I get a little too low on health, then I think it's much better for that way, which is why I actually picked up that safety one up right there. Believe it or not, that's actually one of the only times you'll actually find one on a stage, so it's probably for the better, even if it costs me just a couple of seconds. Alright, so Sponge, like in X2, he will get angry at a certain point of health, and so what I want him to do is goad him into doing that move, and then I'll finish him off just like that, because if he's on the ground and gets angry, he'll be invincible, which means I can't damage him until his lightning attack is done, and we don't want that. So that was pretty decent.
Yeah, it was. I actually didn't even know that you could get an extra point of damage if you used the Saber while sliding down a wall.
Wait, was that an extra point of damage?
Yeah, it was.
Well then, I never knew that. That's never happened before. Okay, well there you go, folks. There you go. Anyhow, let's move on to Tunnel Rhino though. And something you'll notice within this game is that aside from X1 Mavericks here, because apparently there are some familiar faces coming back from X1 and X1 to X3 rather, the levels coming from the X1 Mavericks are pretty much remotely close to being as accurate to the original X1 stage as possible, but the others are mostly faithful, but also try to be original, which is really cool. Aside from that, though, that's all I really wanted to mention about this, so we're going on to our first of the armor... I gotta be careful there. Armor capsules. And Zorn, what are we getting here?
We are getting what is probably the biggest time save in the run. This is Zero Final. Basically, it's an extra thing that Zero can get from the arm capsules, which it's a little weird because it's Dr. Light that's giving them to him, and he's surprised about Dr. Light's appearance at X5, but that's another can of worms. Basically, what this thing does, it drains the Maverick's health by a lot, and if you see down there, Zero has an energy bar. That energy bar is basically his energy for all of the skills that you need to go into the pause menu for. Zero Final is one of those. Normally, you are only able to use one Zero Final per stage, but if you have the energy saver, you can use it twice, which is just, all things considered, broken, so that's why we get it. I know the task doesn't do that, but we're humans, so we don't do that.
Yeah, definitely check out the task, though, if anyone hasn't. Like, it's a really interesting watch, for sure. So, with that in mind, we're going into a bit of a rising lava section, which actually does not, well, as you demonstrated there, it doesn't insta-kill me, but it still does damage, so I want to be considerate of that. I'm actually going to switch into X right now so that I can make use of his health bar instead. And the reason for that is because similar to, well, as some of you might notice, we got the character swapping going on. It's very similar to X7. In fact, this was the first game to officially introduce the mechanic before X7. And like in that game, characters share lives. So if one dies, you immediately lose the life. Luckily, X8 would do a little bit better on that, and yeah. Alright, here comes Tunnel Rhino. Let's go. Ooh, okay, that's unfortunate.
Oh,
I tried
Yeah,
I tried.
oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I absolutely hate this stage with a burning passion because it is so sadistically hard.
Burning because lava. Ah,
That's a fair point.
it's unfortunate, but you know what? Oh well. So,
You are also down an extra zero
Okay.
final, which does kind of suck.
come on, gotta be careful here. Oh, not this move. That was actually
Oh.
something I was hoping he wouldn't pull out. There we go. Woo!
I think for the end there, you actually could have switched to X to be a little bit safer.
True, but at the same time, I want his weapon as 0, so... which-
Oh yeah, I forgot that's a mechanic. Oops.
Right, we should explain that, in fact. So, in this game, oddly enough, only one of the characters is going to get the weapon, and it's whoever defeats the boss. So, unlike X7 and X8, you actually have to be very considerate as to who does the finisher, at least here in Extreme mode. There is a way to play characters with all the weapons, but not quite in here. Actually, we should also explain Extreme mode as well, so Zorn, if you would do the honors.
Yeah, so basically this game is divided up into two separate parts, X mission and Zero mission. X mission and Zero mission, I feel like it's self-explanatory. One you play as X, the other you play as Zero. I say they're divided into two halves because for X mission you fight X1 and X2 bosses, and for Zero mission I believe it's X2 and X3 bosses. But basically when you complete X mission and Zero mission, you unlock Extreme mode, which Extreme mode is just both tied into one, and you also get an extra boss, but it's not important. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna take care of these bats.
Oh yeah, and there was also another thing. Some parts, the stages also become a lot harder. Like you will see an example of that later on when we get to Flame Mammoth stage.
Actually,
I think that's
there's not
really-
seemingly a whole lot of changes between X Mission, Zero Mission, and Extreme modes, but the ones we do know about are what Zorn just mentioned, and also you saw one in Wire Sponge as well, where the strike chain is able to deal damage both through the tip and the chain, whereas in terms of Zero Mission, only the head of the chain can really hurt you, so it's definitely one of the things that makes someone like me who started with X and Zero Mission, it took a little bit of time for me to get used to that, basically.
I actually forgot about that. I do it. I primarily do Extreme mode runs, so yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Very close. As you can tell, I was trying to make use of timing to essentially avoid getting pushed by that, but it could have been worse. So that's the interesting thing about what we just got with this armor capsule, and it's the only one we'll need to get for X. Zorn, what is it?
It's the dash boots. So basically, you can see that. So you can now see that Tempest is air dashing with X. You saw that he was air dashing with Zero. That's not something that X can do at the start of the game. You literally need the dash boots, and the reason why is because for some absolutely maniacal reason, near the end of the game, there's a point where you remember that electricity water. By the way, there was electricity water. It would have killed Tempest. Either way, that comes back later on in the game, and there's no way to get past it without the dash boots. I do not know why they programmed it that way, or why they designed it that way. Whatever word you want to use, it's stupid.
Pretty much. It's weird too, because this was kind of Capcom's devising or whatever. Like, this is a legit Capcom game, whereas if you're familiar with the classic Mega Man games, Minikuchi Engineering was responsible for that sort of thing. It's kind of funky when you really...
Yeah, this also did come out around the same time as X6, which I believe also is kind of guilty of that.
Actually, yeah, wow, yeah, that you mention it, yeah, it was.
Same year, I think, actually.
Yes, both were both were 01, at least in Japan, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, this is probably the best design stage in Extreme 2 in mine, and also, I think, Tempest's opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Blast Hornet here is one of the best examples of how stage design somewhat differs for some of the Mavericks. And yeah, no, I personally prefer this over the airbase. The airbase is cool and all, and the airbase, at least in the Super Nintendo version, has the original composition of Hornet's theme. But yeah, as you can tell, which actually that's a good fun fact. So because X3 on the PS1 and the Sega Saturn, I believe it was, or was it? Yeah, no, it was the Sega Saturn. Because
Saturn.
Because that version was already out, Xtreme 2 decided, hey, let's go ahead and cover those versions of the X3 songs, which is kind of funny, because that's something you don't usually see whatsoever. But yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. Anyway, I'm going to take this very slow here. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think you can catch Capcom dead using the Saturn version of Tengu Man's theme.
Oh, true.
Or the Mega Man Ace version. So many versions of Tengu Man's theme.
They also put X4 on the Saturn as well. Apparently it came out on my birthday, like my literal birthday.
Wow.
Oh, that would have been nice for Zero, not so much X. Oh well. I was trying to take that one safe because I didn't want to get hit once. But yeah, I just got a little safety item for Zero called the body armor part. And as you can imagine, it halves my damage now. But I figure, yeah, okay, now anything will kill him. Actually, I'll take the safety death, why not?
Oh yeah, this boss, by the way, is the reason why K Poisson, shout out to him, by the way, he's arguably the best Mega Man Xtreme 2 speedrunner. He absolutely hates this boss.
Yeah, it's RNG incarnate for sure, but at least in extreme mode, it's not as sufferable because in the case, this is another one of the differences between Zero Mission and extreme mode. Oh, that was weird. How did the health pickup just spawn right by my feet like that? Or was that a dust cloud? Oh well, I'll have to look back at that one.
It was an HP pickup.
That's weird. Because there is one that spawns when, we like to call that mini-boss blinker wall. There's a chance of one dropping, but for whatever reason, I don't think that was supposed... It's supposed to be in the room, not outside the room. Not to be confused with Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
What the... Huh? What was that?
That was crush damage, essentially. I'm gonna do a little safety trick right here. I'm gonna reload a autosave, because that'd be the perfect time for that. That's never happened before, and that I can say for sure. Ooh, that's, I just realized I should probably quickly change the, live split timer layout I'm using, because I just realized that the red goes into the red. That is my fault, folks. Sorry about that. I'll see if I can speed it up, during the weapon gets screen. That was unfortunate because that's now putting me a little behind pace, but I still have an opportunity to do some catching up. We'll see how it all goes. That was still weird though. That is one. Oh, now I'm getting a phone call. Whoops.
I actually had no clue that Hornet could even do crush damage. That was so bizarre.
Basically, I was caught in his hitbox or something like that, but that's not supposed to happen. There is one boss that would do it, but not here. Definitely not supposed to happen.
Yeah, that is the absolute most bizarre thing that I've ever seen. There's a lot of bizarre things that are being found with this game now, huh?
Yeah, all sorts of bizarre stuff. That's not a better layout. That's a better layout. Alright, sorry about that to anyone that was having trouble seeing the colors there. Alright, ostrich time. Now that I've officially shaken that bizarreness off. Yeah, that's alright then. Okay, well, anyhow. So now we got the Ride Chaser going on. This is a bit of an interesting version of that. So this is Game Boy hardware, Game Boy Color, and as impressive as this game is, there's a little bit of jank behind these controls. I can't really say for sure, but it seems as though when it comes to being able to control the darn thing, you're probably better off attacking with the up direction, because then your horizontal movement is totally able to... Let's see here. Sorry, I'm now focused on a series of damage boosts. There we go, that's good.
Yeah, those damage boosts are really difficult. I especially struggle with... Oh, this part I struggle with a lot.
Nice, first try. Cool. I'm going to switch out to X to show you all that some things change color palettes. You saw it with the Capsule and Volt Catfish's stage. Oh, great. I think that timer color still blends in. Oh no, what was I thinking when I designed that? But yeah, let's try it. I'll fix it again in just a bit. Wow, this is probably the weirdest thing I've ever had to do during a live run. Oh well.
I used to struggle with this section a lot, but then I learned that it's actually not even that hard.
But yeah, the reason I also swapped to X is because I prefer to get the... I prefer to get the life up there. So... The thing about collecting life ups is that, similar to weapons, they only go to whoever the heck... collects them in the first place. I'm gonna see if I have a little health... Yeah, there we go. A little reserve. That's why I collected the tank, by the way. The sub-tank is especially nice to get because it's very much on the way in Wire Sponge's stage. And so it's one of those things that you're better off getting just for the sake of safety.
One thing that I should mention about that fight, if you accidentally ground slash Ostrich once, you actually can use the Drill Crush on him to regulate the damage.
Alright, so we haven't quite seen it just yet, but oddly enough, there's a nice little thing that can happen with the weapons screen, because the text doesn't normally allow you to scroll fast. That's the thing about this game. The Japanese version is much faster in going through cutscenes because you can't skip cutscenes, which is weird because I know Game Boy games at least let you do that, at least in one case of what's coming up after this run by my pal Mr. Cab, which, by the way, you're definitely going to want to check it out. Like, no doubt about it, definitely, please. But, yeah.
Hey, Tempest?
Hmm?
There seems to be some sort of audio delay. It's playing the octopus music, but I'm seeing Flame Mammoth.
That's right, we should quickly explain that. So this is actually a bit of a weird programming oopsie from Capcom, and this is only present in the Japanese version, but octopus and mammoth themes are swapped. In the worldwide release, though, they fixed this entirely. It's kind of funny.
They fixed a lot of things in the worldwide release.
That's true too, yeah. The thing about this category's name, No Credits Warp, is that it applies to some tech that Focus Sight had found in terms of the final stage, where in the Japanese only version, or rather, the Japanese version, that's not Japanese only. In the Japanese version, you can apparently exit out of the menu in the middle of the boss refights, and you just go to the credits of the game. It's so weird. Also, did Flame Mammoth say he was an elephant by any chance? I don't know if I heard him say I'm an elephant. Anyhow.
It feels really weird seeing you kill Flame Mammoth with 0 because I do 100% mostly.
Yeah, which, the thing is, you really don't have to worry about who gets the fire wave from Flame Mammoth. That's actually one of the instances where both X and 0 get the same weapon. It's both called fire wave, and it does the same thing. It's how 0 does it, though, that makes X's a little bit more preferable, but it's manageable because, like I said, it's the same effect, so therefore it's capable of getting the armor capsule in this stage.
It's actually it's not. I've tested it.
Oh, really?
Not.
That's weird.
I don't know why they did it like that.
I'll have to look back at that. I know I tried it at one point. I know it worked. That's weird. Anyhow, we're Neon Tiger's stage, case in point. So shout out to Guns N' Roses because this song is totally My Michelle inspired. And that's something that will always live rent-free in my head. Oh, yeah. Shoot. Okay, come on, there we go. Yeah, these Cannon Dumb enemies, I believe they're called Cannon Dumbs, similar to their counterparts from the Battle Network series, which, shout out to the newly released Legacy Collection, by the way. Absolutely enjoying that. But yeah. Those guys on the platforms are just not fun to take care of, and so you gotta take a dangerous risk by jumping on them with the possibility of getting knocked back into the pit. So fun fact. If you jump off of the platform before you have to deal with those guys and you hover above them, you actually can skip them entirely. Like, they don't spawn if you do that. Fascinating.
Yeah. Anyway, here's Neon Tiger.
Come on, get it here. All right.
Basically, essentially Neon Tiger just jumps around everywhere, and that's basically the whole fight. He jumps around everywhere. He sometimes does Ray Splasher, which is a lot slower here, thankfully, because I hated it on the SNES version. Oh yeah, and there's also a pretty specific reason why we killed Neon Tiger with X. I don't think it makes the next fight faster necessarily, but it does definitely make it easier.
The thing about this game, too, is that Maverick weaknesses are kind of weird. You'll notice that I'm able to face all 8 of them in Extreme mode, but in terms of X mission and Zero mission, they split them into campaigns of 4 each. This is not unlike how Extreme 1 handled things, but because of that, by this way of design, Capcom, for some reason, never accounted for having a soft weakness. Rather, it's similar to the idea of Mega Man 8, where you have 2 boss groups, and each of them have weaknesses that cycle into one another, but when you get to the next group, you have to, like, use the next best thing to try and beat that Robot Master as fast as you can before you can start doing those weaknesses. In here, it's a full-on chain of weaknesses, but at some point or another among these separated groups of 4, you're going to get to a point where the remaining weapon is not the actual weakness, despite what implications might make it seem. This is strange because Capcom's usually good about soft weaknesses, considering that in the case of Mega Man 7, Slash Man was weak to, say, Freeze Man's weapon. But yeah, oh well. Alright, so here's the Utuboros. You recognize this fella from being this very same mini-boss, albeit maybe a bit shrunken down, but in X1, he's there, and so is a second one, which would be guarding the collectible body armor for X, but we don't need that. We already got Zero, so we're pretty much good to go.
It's also guarding the Void.
That's true, it is guarding the Void.
Basically the context for what I just said. One of the discoveries I made recently, there is a secret minus world, we'll call it in here, where if you skip the second Utuboros and you grab the helmet, the camera is locked, and then that Utuboros gets condensed down. Actually, we should probably talk about fighting this guy first.
Time to make some calamari.
So basically, this is why we had X get the Neon Tiger weapon. This is the whole reason why. It's because it causes Launch Octopus to be frozen for about, is it 10 seconds, 8 seconds? Somewhere around there. Which basically just gives Zero enough time to just wail on him.
Ah, you said whale. Get it? Because we were in the ocean?
Ha! That was an unintentional pun.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just in a joking mood right now. Okay, so normally that cutscene, interestingly enough, would be longer if you were playing on X and Zero mission, and that's because there's specific dialogue saying that you would now have access in those campaigns. There we go.
I hate this screen so much.
I'll explain that one in a bit, but yeah, at that cutscene, you normally get told that you now have access to character swapping if you're playing X and Zero mission, but in the case of Extreme mode, we already got it, so no need. But yeah, character swapping is accessible even outside of Extreme mode, which is nice. In the case of X mission and Zero mission, the other character is fully armored, so that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, so I probably should actually finish up my conversation about the Void.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you can actually skip the second Utuboros fight, or the first technically, but I say skip very lightly because it's not technically an actual skip. Essentially what it is, when you clip through the wall after fighting Utuboros and you grab the head capsule, the screen locks. That's only until you actually kill the Utuboros, which is now condensed into all 5 parts of it are now condensed into one figure, and if you touch, you go flying. If you manage to kill it and then go into this void area and then manage to clip into the floor, like beyond the checkpoint, and then use the scramble change, you get sent into a sort of minus world area where it was probably some sort of testing or something for the developers, but it has Launch Octopus's textures. Not entirely sure, but it is a very bizarre discovery.
It really is. But hey, that's the interesting thing about you finding all this stuff. I certainly wouldn't have had time or the incentive to.
Yeah, well, I did find out. I did learn that you can zip, and I've been trying to figure out some way to make that actually save time.
Yeah, unfortunately it does. Oop.
Oops.
Unfortunately, it doesn't, but yeah, I'm gonna try that again. Oh, we should explain the autosaving, by the way. So, autosaving in this game is a legal feature and one that actually is accepted in valid runs. The reason for that is because both in Xtreme 1 and 2, the Game Boy Color cartridges had this battery which let you capture the last moment that you hit one of those checkpoints. I guess you could call them metal Oreos. That's what Focus named them at one point. But essentially, when you hit those checkpoints, then you know that you've gotten yourself an autosave, and at that point, you can just go ahead, soft reset the game, and go to the continue menu where the game will then tell you, do you want to go back to here? Keep in mind that once you do so, your autosave is then done. So it's not something you can use a whole lot, but it is pretty helpful, especially if you need to keep a certain amount of lives and don't necessarily want to take any safety game overs, basically.
The funniest part there is that you actually technically can't auto or soft reset the Game Boy Color because it doesn't have a reset button.
Well, yes, I'm obviously talking about Start B and A.
Right, I forgot that's a thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Oops.
And it's a bit of a classic thing, too. Like, it's been in a lot of Nintendo handheld or Nintendo platform games, and yeah, it was even Inti Creates, a developer that once worked with Capcom, having previously even been composed of former Capcom folks that wanted to go their own way. They like to also make reference to that too. Oop! Oh no! Oh dang it! Well, that right there is a good example of why we hate this boss. Zorn likes to sometimes refer to it as internal screaming.
Just internal screaming asterisks. And I don't struggle with it as much, but when I was first learning this game, that was a different story.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time to figure this one out, but yeah, so that was Isazen Suilo. It's a giant tank with two heads, each of them taking up half of the full health bar. And the idea is that when one of them is destroyed, the other will essentially go aggro on you. You saw it take an absurd amount of screen space, and of course, that's one of the things that makes this boss so casually infamous. The idea behind taking care of it is that it is technically weak to Tunnel Rhino's weapon or technique, which, therefore, the Drill Crush in Zero's case is very much effective on it. But, of course, using the Zero Final is also helpful too, because if you position yourself close enough to the heads, you can... I'm going to take a safety game over, by the way. You can hit the both of them within one fell swoop. I should explain, by the way, how Zero's techniques work. So, sometimes you activate them in the menu, sometimes you use a button combination to do it. It all depends on the conditions for the technique, such as if it needs Zero to be on the... I'm gonna get that health. If it needs Zero to be on the ground, it's, you know, essentially stuff like whether it's in the ground or in the air, and if the condition is good, then you either activate it in the menu or you use a special little combo where you're either holding the attack button while holding up or down, something like that, basically. In the case of the Drill Crush, it's down while in midair, so yeah. Another thing about X's weapons, obviously they have their own health bars, but also they tend to deal actual weakness reactions to bosses. If you're using Zero's techniques, that's not really a thing, so let's say I was using Rayclaw and Volt Catfish, which I wasn't in that fight, but yeah, it would have caused Catfish to be in a bit of a very stun-lockable position, basically. And that's probably my favorite way to take care of this boss in this game. But yeah, this is the part that Zorn alluded to. It's what requires the use of X's leg parts here. You really can't do it any other way. And it's very bizarre. But it does showcase that both the air dash, the horizontal air dash, and X3's upwards air dash are present here. Which, by the way, shout out to X3 speedrunner Ryan Ford, who I know is currently watching. Alright, let's go ahead, get up here. Oh, no, gotta be careful here. The electricity walls are instant kill, but the gray block right there is actually a false wall. And it's actually holding the final essential piece for the 100% categories in Xtreme and X missions, so yeah. But we don't need to get it here. We don't even have everything. It only unlocks when you've got everything else. Alright, time for Berkana. We do not like the alphabet because she uses it against us. She'll throw A spheres or B spheres, which I can destroy, but if I get hit by them, she'll either turn the wall or the floor into spikes, and also the button's function gets disabled. A is probably the most annoying, but at least in the case of B, not being able to hurt her is also pretty not so dandy. But that was a pretty good fight. She's very simple to handle, which is a shame too, because I love her boss fight's potential. Berkana is also one of the first major X villains that is a female, which a lot of the fans usually associate Ferrum from Mega Man X Command Mission, a game that I absolutely still need to try. And yeah, Ferrum is a very popular character among the fans, but yeah, Berkana was actually one of the first villainous female Reploids to hit the series, which is kind of fun to look back to, because I also think her design, being clearly witch-inspired, is absolutely phenomenal. And Gareth's knight design is also really sweet, too. Alright, so it turns out that Berkana and Gareth, despite being the masterminds behind the Soul Erasure incident, they weren't necessarily the ones behind the whole spiel. Of course it was Sigma, so now we gotta take care of him, unfortunately. Which also calls for what, Zorn?
Boss rush.
Oh, well, here we go, because we have just entered it right now. Okay, so this would probably be a good time to talk to... I guess I'll pass it on over to Feasel if you got any things to say about some of the stuff coming up and maybe some of the incentives and whatnot. Otherwise, I can still take it from here. We're really just going through the bosses as far as things go, and that's about it. So we can sponge. Alright. Ooh. He got angry. Okay, well, we saw it once.
I hate this fight so much. It's not as unbearable in extreme mode because, well, you know.
That was still a decent recovery there. I'm just gonna have to try and go faster now. Normally I would have saved my 0 finals for that fight, but now that I have a couple of spares, I could just use them on whoever. And now I don't have to worry about who I defeat Tiger with. Oh yeah, Zorn, what were the parts that I got in the shop after Isaz and Salilo?
Pardon, what was that?
What were the parts that I bought in the shop after Isaz and Salilo?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure the parts that you buy after Isaz and Salilo are Saber Plus 2 and the Ultimate Buster. Saber Plus 2, it basically is just Saber Plus 1, but it's more, and also it's stacked with Saber Plus 1, so more damage during the boss rush. In Ultimate Buster, it basically just makes rapid-fire charge shots, which is actually required for the final boss. In 100%, though, we actually don't do that, and instead we get the quick charge, which it's mostly for the boss rush, but it works just as well as Ultimate Buster.
Right.
So.
The funny thing about that is, it was a bit of a more recent reroute that had us discover that that using the auto charge feature actually does make sense, because then we get to use it with the Shotokan moves. So the Hadouken and the Shoryuken are both present in this game, and just as it was too in Xtreme 1. So, and they deal a lot of damage, especially to the bosses. So, or the Mavericks. I don't know, it's just kind of funny how we sort of realized that, and you know what? It makes sense. I personally like seeing the secret moves getting used in the next game.
Yeah, it's I don't really like how they never included a reference to the spin kick or however you
Tatsumaki
pronounce
Senpu Kyaku. Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we did get the gold armor, but, you know, that would have still been really fun to get that move.
In its credit, gold armor is interesting. I also, by the way, Zordon mentioned that I got Saber +2, but I also got the Buster +1 and +2, so X's Buster can also deal a heckin' lot of damage as well.
Yeah.
More so as just as a just in case sort of measure. Alright, so now we have gotten ourselves out of the boss rush and onto the final stretch of the game. I also made sure to fill up my sub-tank, just as a bit of a safety precaution. But speaking of safety precautions, we are coming up to Sigma's fight, and while Phase 1 is not too bad, Phase 2 is going to have a lot of flashing because that's how the game conveys him taking damage. So if you are concerned about any brightness issues, if you potentially suffer from epileptic seizures, please consider looking away, at least for the sake of that fight, which is coming up right now.
Yeah, we would have. Yeah, that's also. I guess it's also part of why we use X for the Mega Skeletor bit.
Exactly. Alright, here we go. So, this is Sigma Beast. This is a completely original version of the fight. By the way, it's funny how the Phase 1 Sigma is vulnerable to the air dash slash. Kind of make... Oh, I thought he was gonna appear there. Whoops. But yeah. Let's try that again.
Basically, you basically have to hit Beast Sigma 4 times in order to reveal real Sigma. So, yeah.
And time will be once his HP reaches 0. I'm gonna definitely need to heal up X. That's why I got the sub-tank. Oh, well, then he just turns to 0 mode. That, you know what?
Well, actually, that's actually something I should mention. So there's actually a visual glitch that can happen where he actually can switch to 0 mode, but the sprite color palette doesn't change, and it makes you think that he's still in X mode.
Time.
Yeah. I think what happens there I think what happened just now is that he switched to 0 mode, but the only reason why he actually showed the color palette is because you paused the game to use the sub-tank. Because I think pausing the game resets the screen.
Oh gosh. I think I just got a PB.
Oh really? Wow, what time?
I think my previous PB was 40 minutes 22 point something. We're looking at a 40:13:66. Dang. That was close.
I can check that actually. Let me see.
I don't think I submitted it to the leaderboard yet, so don't worry about it. That's so rad.
No, you did. Very slight PB. Yo,
I didn't think I was gonna get that. I actually made up for it. Wow. That's incredible. Well, okay then. Nice. Well, you know what? Let's not even worry about that much. Yeah, that was Mega Man Xtreme 2. I love this game. This is what I first started speedrunning with, and it was also the first X game I officially owned. I still have my cartridge to this day, in fact. So, yeah, no, I would... Actually, is it right next to me? No, it's not, sadly. It's a little bit over ways, but that's okay. Seriously, this game is so rad. It's a shame because you can't get it on the 3DS eShop anymore, with purchases now being closed, but if you have the potential to get this game, I would highly try it. Even if it's just by emulation, please play it. It's fun. And if you want to speedrun it too, we got the Mega Man X speedrunning community Discord, where we got a handheld section for any handheld games, including the iOS Android port. So, yeah, if you, of the first game, that is. But yeah. Zorn, thank you for joining me. Where can these wonderful folks find you?
I am on Twitter at RoseZorn. But I also do very occasionally stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Rose_Zorn. I don't really do much Mega Man content there, mostly because my computer sucks. But what you might be able to find me doing is a lot of Persona speedruns, because I actually am part of that community as well.
Yeah, so we had an Eagle Eyes viewer recognize you as a Persona runner, so there you go.
Oh wow, that's actually really cool.
So yeah, if you'd like to follow me, I'm TempestMask1000 here on Twitch, as well as on my YouTube channel, and my Twitter, you can find me at @TempestSteve, where I do try to post any streaming updates. And yeah, that's all there really is to me for now. Coming up next, we got my pal Mr. Cab55 with Mega Man V for Game Boy, the best of those games. Shout out to Minakuchi Engineering. And you will see me later with Mighty No. 9 and Azure Striker Gunvolts, so stay tuned if you want to catch those games. But other than that, let's keep getting Mega, and let's keep raising money for the kids. Thank you so much for Speed Gaming for having this, though. And yeah, hope to see you all soon. Otherwise, ciao, Michi.
Okay, we're out. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.